Hello. I wanted to make this video so that I can help you find a really good Nikon Coolscan. Home film scanning is something that's really popping off right now. A lot of people are doing DSLR scanning. For me, I really enjoy the Nikon Coolscan. I love the way that the workflow works. For me, it works really smoothly. I really have enjoyed the image quality that I've gotten out of it, but when I went to go buy my first couple of Coolscans, there were not a lot of videos out there that were very helpful. So hopefully this one will be at least a little bit more helpful for you. So I'm going to go over kind of what I look for when I go on eBay, the difference between different Nikon Coolscans, and eventually if it's helpful down the road, I can go over how I use ViewScan and Lightroom to convert and just my entire workflow. But really today, what I want to focus on is finding the right scanner for you and what I look for as green flags and red flags on eBay. So first things first, there's a couple of different types of Nikon Coolscans. There's the 40s, the 50s, the 4000, the 5000, and then you get up into the 8000 and the 9000. Really at the end of the day, the difference is cost until you get into the 8 and 9000s because those do 120. But when you're looking at 35mm, cost is a huge factor in the other four. So to give you some different specs, really we can break it down by price, but I want to point out a couple of glaring differences between the Nikon Coolscans. So I put this chart on the screen, and as you can tell, the 4000, the 5000, and the 50, they all scan at 4000 DPI. So that's great if you really want high resolution. A couple bit of differences, the 4000 has 14-bit, 5000 is 16, as well as the 50, and the 40 shoots at 12-bit. So when we're looking at time, the 4000 scans in about 42 seconds a frame, 5000 in 20, the 40 in 42 seconds, and then the 50 in 38 seconds. The major difference between the two different models of the 4 and 5000 and the 40 and 50 is that the 4000, 5000 can actually scan an entire roll of film. So if that's something that really matters to you, that would be something worth looking into with these models. But a note on that, you will have to get the SA30 adapter that goes in the front of the scanner. The 40 and 50 both scan 6 frames at a time maximum, and they use the SA21 adapter. But the biggest difference between all of these scanners is the price. The cheapest one is obviously going to be the 40. It shoots at a much lower resolution, it has a lower bit rate, takes longer to scan. It's an older machine, so it doesn't do quite as much as the other machines are doing, but it should run you around like $200 to $300. The 50 is the next most expensive machine. It is running about $500 to $600. It does a really great job. It is lacking that full roll capacity though. And then we get into the scanners that are doing full rolls. So they have a lot more capacity and they are still running 4000 DPI, but the 4000 coming on the cheaper side of things is running about $700 per machine. It does take a lot longer to scan, like a little more than twice as long than the 5000, but it still shoots in a 4000 resolution and a 14-bit. So to me, that's really good. That's the one that I ended up going with. But then you look at the 5000, that's going to be the top of the line for 35mm film, and it's at the end of the day probably going to run you about $1,500. For these charts, I included the SA31 within the pricing of the 4000 and 5000. It would be a little bit cheaper if you got the 21, but then you could only run 6 frames at a time, just like the other machines. So then we have something like the Nikon 8000, and that scans 120 as well as 35. And with adapters that you would have to get, and depending on the frame size of medium format that you were shooting, you could be running like $1,500 plus on those 8000 machines. They're really expensive. They're really great if you're doing 120 and you're doing 35, but if you're 35 focused like I am, I would much rather buy a dedicated 35 scanner and then just send my 120 off to go get developed and scanned at a lab. I included a couple other factors down below so that you can do the math yourself, figure out how much a Coolscan is going to cost you. But you're going to be looking at buying adapters, you're going to be looking at buying software, and all of this together is probably going to add up to be about as much as a DSLR scanning setup, but to me, just having it dedicated, I really enjoy the system a lot. So now, as we hop on eBay, let's go through the process of what it might look like to go on, actually find a Nikon Coolscan that's going to work for you, some of the green flags, some of the red flags that I look for, and see if we can find a good one right now. As I was editing, I noticed I say SA31 a couple times when I'm talking about adapters. Just know I'm talking about SA30. I get it right at some point. Sorry about that. So I'm going to start off by just searching for a Nikon Coolscan 4000. That's the one that I ended up going with, so I'll just do a search based off that. A lot of what I'm going to point out as green and red flags are going to be applicable to all 4 machines. So let's start off with this first one that popped up. So we're looking at 325 pounds, which in American is probably about $400 or so. And first things first, I'm noticing that it's coming with cables and it's coming with software, which isn't going to be needed, but it's coming with a handbook, which is useful. I'm seeing that this is the SA21 adapter, so it's only going to be scanning 6 frames, even though this machine is capable of scanning a full roll. And it's also got the slide adapter, which really isn't needed unless you're mounting color positive slides. If I'm buying a 4000, I'm buying it so that it can do that full roll capacity. This is not going to be the best machine for me because I'm going to also have to go and find an adapter somewhere else. But if we scroll down, we see it's in good working condition, it's been serviced, which is really great. And he's written here what's included, which is also really good because we want to have a list of that when we unpack. The one thing that I will point out is that no returns are accepted, and so that to me is, it's not a red flag because a lot of these scanners people aren't going to accept returns on, but if they are accepting returns, that probably means it's a really good vendor. So let's go back and see if we can find something better. Because I'm looking for full roll capacity, let's just scroll until we find something that has a full roll capacity SA31 adapter with it. And because I haven't really found anything, let's go back up here and type in SA30 and see if anything comes up with that. So right off the bat, we see a 4000 that has serviced SA30, SF200, so it's got a couple of other things. So I'm going to scroll down, no returns accepted, that's okay. I see that he said it's been fully serviced, so that's really great. He listed there what has been serviced, that's awesome. What it comes with, that's really helpful. It comes with this SF200, which is it's for mounted slides and it's a slide feeder to do a lot of slide feeding scans. That's fine. I don't really need that, and so this is going to be more expensive than I want it to be. But it does come with the SA30 that's been converted from an SA21. That's okay. It's a small mod that people have done to convert those 6 frame feeders into a full roll feeder that works with the 4000 and 5000. I have one of those. It works great. So really, to me, this is a really good find. It's more expensive than it needs to be by far. It's 965 pounds. That's probably like $1,200. And so it's well over the budget that I would have put on here, but that's mostly because of the SF200. So maybe what I would do right here is to actually go to the seller's page and see if they have anything there. So up here, I'm just going to type in Nikon Coolscan 4000. And this guy has a few listed, which is great. I think that I actually bought mine from this guy, so I know he's a pretty reputable seller. But he doesn't seem to have any 4000s for sale that I want. So let's take a look at his 5000s that he's got. He currently only has one 5000 listed, which is all right. This one is just a little bit above where I would want it to be. This is probably about $1,700 US, but looking through it looks very clean. It comes with cables, it comes with discs, all the things that we would want it to come with. It comes with that SA21 that's been converted into an SA30. That's great. It means it can take the full roll. No returns accepted. That's okay. It has been fully serviced, and he said what he did down here, and it's been tested, checked, and works well. That's really important. We want to make sure that these things work and that they've been tested. So all in all, this is a pretty good find. It's got some adapters that I wouldn't need. It's got the SA30, which I do, and it's a little bit more expensive than I would like. But as we see these machines get bought up, they're going to go up in price over time. That's just kind of how this works. And as we know, film is getting more expensive, which means home scanning is getting more expensive. Everyone wants to save money. This is a great way to do that. And so if you're shooting enough rolls in the year that home scanning is going to be worth it to save some money and not send things to lab, this would be a great purchase. So the other thing we can do is just go back to eBay in general and search for a Nikon Coolscan 5000. We didn't find any that really stood out on that buyer's page, even though that was a great find. So let's see if there's any other ones that pop out. So here would be a great example of a Nikon Coolscan 5000 with an SA30. It's been serviced. It can do film and slide, so if you do slide, that's great. It is 1,100 pounds, so that's probably about $1,300 US. No returns accepted, that's okay. And it's been tested and checked, it works well, it's been serviced, and he's got 100% positive feedback from 406 people. So that to me is a really great sign. This is absolutely a scanner that I would buy if I was looking for a 5,000 because it's kind of right in that perfect price range where it's not too expensive. It's coming with the parts that I need. I'm not gonna have to go out and try to find an SA30 somewhere. And so this would be a great purchase. Now just to look for one of the other ones, let's look for a Nikon Coolscan IV or 40. So the big thing here with these, because they're a lot cheaper, is you wanna make sure that these have been tested and working, and you wanna make sure it comes with this SA21, which is the feeder that allows you to do 6 frames at a time. So I'm gonna click on this one and see what it looks like. It's 275 pounds, so about 320 US dollars. It's falling right in that price range that I want it to. No returns accepted, that's okay. Lots of positive feedback. The scanner has been serviced. It's in good working condition. Here's all that comes with it, and the SA21 is what I care about the most. And like I said before, it scans at 2900 DPI. That's important to note, that it's not gonna be scanning at 4000 like the other ones, but it's still gonna give you really sharp image quality. And really overall, a really important note is that at the end of the day, people are gonna be looking at these pictures on Instagram, unless you're printing or showing in a gallery or something like that. Like, the difference between 2900 and 4000 really only matters to you. And that's okay. If it matters to you a lot to get 4000 over 2900, by all means do it. But just know that the difference between that when you're looking on your phone or when you're looking even on a laptop is not gonna be that huge. If you're really trying to save money by doing home scanning, this is a great way to do it. It's not gonna have that full roll capacity, so it will take you longer to scan, and so it'll cost you some time. But at the end of the day, if saving $1,000 is worth it to you, do that. I hope this video was helpful. If it's helpful for me to go over how I actually scan with ViewScan and convert with Negative Lab Pro and Lightroom and go over my whole scanning process, I can absolutely make that video as well. In a world where we're all buying stuff off eBay, eBay is really tricky and complicated. I've bought 4 of these scanners now, and so these are just some of the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. I hope this is helpful for you. If it was, and if you buy a scanner, please let me know. That would be really exciting for me. But yeah, I hope you have a great time setting up your home lab, your home scanning setup. Go take a picture of something that matters, and we'll see you in the next one.